I hope.
Yes, sir. Asmita ma'am, you can start the session now. We are live.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Good afternoon, all. Myself, Dr. Asmita Patel, and my colleague Trivedi Desai from RNGBIT College, Bardoli. We have been conducting live webinar series, and today we have an expert, Dr. Kshitij Trivedi, with us. He is an assistant professor at Shah Vijapurwala of Management, Vadodara. He holds doctorate degree in management from SVNIT, Surat. And today he will guide us on the topic research methodology for researchers. So I request all participants to grab the opportunity for future research. I hand over the session to Dr. Kshitij. So you may continue now. Hello, sir. Sir, your voice is not audible.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving this opportunity. Hello?
Hello. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, sir, you are visible
Hello?
and audible also.
Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Hello? Hello? Is it audible now, ma'am?
Yeah.
Hello? Hello? Yes, is it audible, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Your
Okay.
voice is audible, sir.
Okay.
You can continue, sir.
So thank you very much. Okay, thank you so much, ma'am, for giving this wonderful opportunity for conducting a webinar on a particular events that has been occurring since last 3 to 4 months. And even in the case of this, presenting this particular wonderful events through this different kind of webinars. Okay. So first of all, I'd like to thank and I'd like to state that all the particular students, all the participants and all the faculty members to be in a very good shape, even in this COVID situations. And today we'll be having a particular webinar on research methodology for researchers. Now, these are the research doctorate, PhD researchers or a postdoc researchers. The main important aspects of any kind of particular research or any particular thesis or a particular material that we route is the research part. Now, first of all, moving forward is the flow of the presentations. So the flow of presentations will be first see what basically research, third, what are the research characteristics, what do you mean by inductive and deductive research, what is research methodologies or what are the different research methodologies, along with the research types that we implement in different kind of aspects of the particular events. And the second last part is research process, and finally, what good research should be look like or how a good research should be. So this is basically the flow of the presentation of today's webinar on research methodology for researchers. Moving forward, first of all, if we see research, it's basically we can break down research into two different parts. First is and second is the search. Means we are doing again and again, or we are doing the same thing again. Once the particular person has done, we again do the same part, but we explore a little bit further. Now, the exploration part that we do in a research part or part, the exploration phase is nothing but we are searching something new. There's an X variable, Y variable, which has already been researched. But when you do a research, you are actually exploring the variables apart from X and Y. You actually take Z, A, B, and you are moving forward. Now, in the process of moving forward, you actually discover the answers which you have not answered, or which the previous researchers have not answered the questions. So basically, research is discovering the answers which are hidden answers or unanswered questions which you are discovering again by looking at the different kinds of problems an industry faces. It may be a practical problem, it may be a real life problems in an industry. If we see in this COVID situation, all the particular organizations are facing a problem of a real life problem.
Hello.
problem, we need to do research part.
Kshitij sir. Sir, please
Yes, sir.
maximize the PPT, sir.
So it has already been maximized. Hello?
Yes, sir. But it is visible in two parts, sir. Sir, please close the PPT and again share.
Okay, I'll do the same thing. I'll do that.
Yes, sir. Now zoom in.
Is it 5 so now?
No, sir. It is divided into half part only. Sir, full screen કરી દો ને તમારી સ્ક્રીન ને.
Sir, already મારા PC પર full screen જ છે. Is it fine now?
Yes, sir. It is readable, but fonts are very small.
Is it maximized now?
Sir, it's
હવે full screen
maximized,
થઈ?
but half PPT is cutted. Sir, can you share your entire screen? Sir, please.
Sure, I'll
talk
share entire screen.
Okay, sir.
Sure. I'll particularly share my entire screen.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Now
Is it fine now,
open the-
sir?
Yes, sir. Clearly. Okay, sir.
Is it fine now? So is it audible? Is it visible right now?
Yes, sir. Completely. You can carry on, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. So before at the sorry for the inconvenient cause. So whatever the COVID situation has arise for any organization, whether to deal with an production organization, whether to deal with a service industry, even an academics or a different kind of layman workers, all the particular industries is facing a practical and a real life problem, which has to be researched in a particular application based way. So you have to find out an application for all the different parameters, all the issues that have been caused due to this COVID situation, not only in India, but this situation is arising across the particular world. Fine. And whatever the answers to be discovered, whatever the problems need to be answered through whatever the applications or the softwares or the particular applications we used, it has to be in a very scientific method. Fine. So that is nothing but it's a part of a research work that what we are actually discovering the different answers. The answers are there, but we are exploring. I'm repeating, we are exploring the different kinds of practical problems which are not answered yet through the different applications, but in a scientific method. Okay, so that is the research. If you move forward, research basically means the three most important parts. First is the collecting part, second is analyzing it, and third is the interpretation part. So whatever the research we do, whether it's an X research or Y research or any kind of a research we do, we have to collect the different information, which is past information or the current information. And after collecting those informations, we have to analyze the research in a way forward. So what actually our problem is, what is to be identified, how we can analyze the problem to further interpreting those research. So if you see in this particular figure, these three components are there, but the center part, whatever the center part is nothing but it is a research. It is a collaborative work of all the three parameters of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting. Whenever these three comes together in all the aspects, that was basically what we term them as a research part. Now, for every individual, why do we need to do a research? First important and the most important question, why do we need to do a research? Now, in this today's scenario, we know that for different kinds of promotion activities or different kind of academic promotions or getting different projects to show different institutes, we have to do research. So research can be done by three individuals in the three different scenarios and different aspects. First is it's a personal interest. I am interested in doing an X number of research, or I'm doing a study on this research. That is basically termed as a personal interest, or I'm doing a personal research. Next interest is the professional interest. Why do we need to do a professional research? Because I'm doing for a society part, I'm doing for some other activities. That is the professional part in a particular research I'm doing. Third is the academic research. Now, if you see, first is an individual who is doing a research. Second is professional interest, that is basically for society, for well-being, whatever the different schemes that particular government tells to different individuals. That is the combination of all the three. If we talk about the different schemes of a government, ex government we're talking about, we're not talking about a particular government, but all these government policies that the particular government brings us, it's a combination of all these three. Individual persons has different story about it. He publish it in an academic interest, and then this academic interest is useful in the professional interest of a particular researcher. So these are the three main aspects or the interest in which a research is carried out. Now it depends upon the different levels at which level you are working and you want to do a particular research. Clear? Moving on to the research characteristics, if we talk about. So first characteristics of a research, any kind of research, is the problem solving. We have a problem, but instead of identifying, we are actually focusing on problem solving. How the problem has arisen. What are the aspects of arising a problem? Why this problem has occurred? What are the consequences of the problem? Now, when you identify on the different aspects of problem, you can actually identify the problem solving main criteria. One thing is that when you don't only focus on the center part, it is the around part, the different kinds of streams which are coming out from the problem, that will identify and help you to identify the problem, and it will lead to a problem solving criteria for you. So that's the first characteristics, that is problem solving. Fine. Second is your accurate observations. Now, whenever you have to solve any problem, the most important part in a particular organization or any kind of a research is to observations. You have to accurately observe what are the situations, what are the circumstances, what are the methods applicable, what are the different kind of simulations that have been carried out, whether these simulations is useful to the problem, whether it is helpful, whether it is harmful. So you need to identify the observations to fulfill the particular pros and cons of any problem identification problem. Okay. Third thing is logical and objective. The research should be in a more appropriate and a logical way, that it should follow the different steps. It should be in a very well organized manner, and it should be pointedly focusing to an objective part. Now, if we talk about this COVID situation, there are certain number of steps in which you are supposed to follow. If we talk about a clinical research, that is basically, we term this COVID-19 is a clinical research. So if we say there's a logical steps to be followed, that if you are going to generate a particular, or you are identifying of generating a particular vaccine, you need to follow a certain number of steps. Certain number of medical procedures is to be explored. That is, first you need to test them on a particular animals, then you need to move forward, and so on. So that is basically the logical steps of any kind of research. And what is objective? We need to remove this particular COVID situation through the information or through the inception of the vaccine in a particular person, so that the particular symptoms of this COVID is been demolished. That is the main objective of a particular research. So this is basically a clinical research part. Okay, to do this, to achieve these objectives of yours, you need to gather new data. Now, this is a new disease, so we do not know any kind of a data. So we have to study the very newer data or the past data, which is very much involved of gathering the new data. The new data will help you to formulate your objectives in a very clear way, also in a logical, and you will get an actual observations to solve the problem of COVID. So if I go in the backward stage, if I start from something like this, that I'm getting new data. Now this new data is in corporation with these objectives of mine, which is in a logical state. And through this logical state, I will basically have a particular accurate observations in the problem solving. And last is the recording and reporting of the particular risk. So this is the more characteristics, that whatever you get, how the problem solving is there, how logical objectives are there, how gathering of new data is there, you have to incorporate with the existing data and record and report. Fine. So that is the main phases of the different research characteristics. Now, if you do research, research are basically of two types. The main research is has been inductive and deductive. Inductive basically is you do not have sufficient amount of data to do a research. So what in that you do, you actually observe, right? For example, if I say that the low cost airlines are having a very delay, low cost airlines are having delay. Now this is my observation. Okay. So from this observation, I will identify a pattern. I will collect the samples of 20 low costing airlines, and then I will create a patterns. Out of the patterns, I identify that, okay, out of 20 low cost airlines, out of 17 of them are having a delay in the particular flight, right? So based on these patterns, I will come to a theory that all the low costing airlines are always having delay. Now this is inductive. I'm inducting from not a data, but from an observation that I have seen. Okay, if I stand in front of a particular mall and then see that how many particular shoppers are going in a particular company and doing a window shopping, that is an observation. So based on then I develop a pattern, and from the pattern I develop a theory. In an engineering field, if I say I'm observing a particular production industry, okay, that the failure of a particular bulb is only for 20 minutes or 20 hours is a failure of a particular bulb. Now, if I test the number of observations of a bulbs, and if I see out of 1000 bulbs that I observed, 999 are failing, or they are having a lifespan of less than 20 hours. So then I develop a theory that the particular bulb quality is not appropriate. So I'm inducting from an observation, identifying a pattern, and then converting into a theory. Next, second part is the deductive. I have a theory. From a theory, I will hypothesize, or I will identify whether this particular bulb is good in quality or not, depending upon the theory. Fine. That X number of components having in a bulb will have a lifespan of 20 hours or more. So that is basically a hypothesis of mine. From this hypothesis, I will incur different kind of statistical tool to observe the particular observations. And if I get the observations, then I will confirm, okay, whether this hypothesis is correct or not. If I again go back to a particular theory of airlines, and low cost airlines are always delayed. Fine. So this is a theory of mine. I have a theory that low cost airlines are always getting delayed. That is the theory. So I will formulate an hypothesis that all the particular low line are delayed. That is the null hypothesis. If I say all the low cost airlines are not delayed, that is an alternate hypothesis. Now I will collect different data and I will observe those data. So if 20 low cost airlines are considered and out of them only 7 are being delayed, I cannot say that 21st low cost airline I select will always have a delay. That is basically the confirmation. So I am deducting from a theory, coming to an hypothesis, observing it, and I am confirming that. So that is basically inductive and deductive research. Now research methodology are basically into 4 different parts. That is scientific method of research, engineering method of research, empirical research, and analytical research. We'll see this all of them in a single way, and along with the process of it. What is happening in a scientific way? You observe a real world situation problem. For example, you are in an industry or you're in a particular academic. You observe a real world life situation that this is a problem in a particular thing. For example, low cost effective cars. This is a problem that you observe. How to improve the efficiency of a particular low cost engines. You want to improve it. So based on that, you have to observe the real life problem. After that, you have to propose a model or a theory for betterment of the solution. What are the different variables that you need to study in a scientific method to achieve that particular real world problem? So that is proposing a new model or a solution for that. After you propose a model, which is a tentative model, it's not a complete model, but it's a tentative model. When you achieve this tentative model, you have to measure and analyze the model, whether the model is working properly or not, whether it is having certain number of drawbacks. So when you measure and analyze, then you need to validate the model or the theory, whatever you have developed. Okay, because whether to check, you have to check whether the variables that you have used are perfectly been analyzed or not. So for measuring this, you have to validate the model of yours. So once you start validating, you will either get positive or negative or neutral effects. Fine. So when you get this, you will repeat till the further improvements and you will again go to the cycle. So this is a complete cyclic flow in a scientific method. So this is the 4th method of research, that is scientific method. Next is an engineering method. So in engineering, you observe an existing solution and situation. Clear? Same way. In this, see, if you see, you observe a real world. See, scientific is a more real world. So if we talk about scientific, it is more to a ongoing situation. This is more of a production and engineering side. You observe a situation, same thing. You propose a better solution, you build a model for better solutions, you again measure, analyze, or evaluate, and you again reconfigure in an engineering phase. For example, developing of a new bicycle chain cycle, or new gears, or new bearings. So in that particular case, you are actually doing an engineering research method. There is not much difference between this scientific method and a particular engineering method. Yeah. Third is the empirical method. The empirical method is already a proposed model. There is an existing model available in the data set or in the literature review of yours. Now, for the particular developed model or a proposed model that you have extracted from the past data, you will develop a statistical model for that using different statistical tool, and based on that, you will analyze whatever the variables, how the variables are, where the variables will fit, and that is basically a case studies you will identify. After you analyze the particular case studies, you will validate those data, and you will again repeat the particular till you get an effective model. Now, these kind of empirical methods are mostly used in a social science and management side. Clear? So they are quite apart from the particular scientific and engineering methods of it. Fine. So in empirical, you propose a model, you take a model, you win-win model have different kind of variables, attributes, you develop a statistical model, develop different hypothesis and correlation and regression to that, analyze the cases where they fit, you validate, and then you again repeat the particular process. Last is the analytical method, that is propose a set of theory. Now you are analyzing it. So you have a set of theory, or you propose a set of theory, then you develop a theory. This is basically in science kind of a particular thing, or a mathematical sort of a method, because we are analyzing it. We are analyzing a theory out of it, whether this theory is true or not, whether this theory is false. So we are basically proposing a particular set of theory. So after proposing, you will develop a theory. Third phase is you will derive the results from them. Okay. Compare the results with whatever the current situation you have, current theory you have, compare whatever the particular your proposed theory and your current theory is giving you. What are the differences? Whether there is an advancement, whether there is a reduction. For example, I want to do a particular shaft manufacturing is there. I want to reduce the processing timing of that. So I already have a particular set of theories, a mathematical model, that this is the particular time for generating one shaft from a machine. So I will develop another theory, I will give the results, and I will compare with the current sets of theories. Okay, that for this of shaft, this is the processing time. Same theory is giving this kind of with different kinds of set of variables and numerics. Fine. So again, if it is necessary, if it is not giving an appropriate result, you again redefine, and a necessary configuration is required. For that, it's a complete cyclic process. So all these are different kinds of research methods that have been used. Further, if we move down, these are the research techniques we can say. Okay, first is a descriptive research. It is basically fact-finding and investigating of research, which is aimed at describing the characteristics of individual situations, describing the research. Whatever I have a finding, I'm actually describing the research in a particular effective way. And in terms, it's an analytical research that already we have seen. It's a primary concern with the testing of hypothesis, whether this is true or not, whether if we take these examples or whether if we take this method, whether these methods are true or not. And when you have a different number of methods, you actually identify the different relationship between them. Okay, that is basically an analytical research. So there's a descriptive, only describing what is individual situation is doing. So these are nothing but describing yourself. You are describing the same way when we describes ourselves to someone else, that is called a descriptive. Analytical, your person sitting in front of you is analyzing you, whether this person is good, whether this person is bad, whether this product is good, whatever the quality assurance company do, it is based on the analytical research of a particular organization. Next, we have applied and fundamental research. Fundamental is more of an action-based research. and it is find out of a real problem solution is requiring an action. Or whenever you are actually doing a policy decision, when you are actually identifying the policy makers, whenever you want to convince the policy makers, you have an applied research in a real life situation. Fundamental is basically a pure based research as described in a particular way, which is for knowledge gaining. You are simply gaining the knowledge and intention of gaining and applying the knowledge in a practice. So whatever the consultancies do, they do a fundamental research first, and then whatever the fundamental research that they have done, they apply this research in a particular real life situation. So first is a theoretical based research or the fundamental based research, and then it is applied in a real life situation for making or taking different decision making in a particular organization. Next is qualitative and quantitative research. Quantitative is the amount of measure of quality or a particular phenomenon. I'm measuring in terms of statistical tools. What is the mean? What is the medium? What is the outcome of a particular organization in 1 minute? How many manufacturing units are working in 1 minute? How much units are coming out in a 1 minute? How much defective pieces are coming out in 1 minute? For engineering students, you must have heard about upper control limit and UCL and LCL. That is the bounding ratio of a particular limits, and whether this particular ratio is being. All this is done in a quantitative research. What is qualitative research? It is an analytical time in a particular film. You are actually identifying the quality. For example, I have to study that whether the effective flow of the organization is working very well or not. At the production unit, I want to see whether the particular person working at the levels are working effective or not. So I will observe them. I will only conduct different kind of observations on them, and I will note down their characteristics or a particular. So I am only observing them to find out the quality, how quality they are working, how quality the work life in a particular organization is there. Okay. So that is basically, I'm standing in front of another example. I'm standing in front of a shop in a particular mall, and if I see I'm a salesperson of an XYZ company or a particular brand, and if I'm only and just see a particular products of mine, I'm not asking them anything. I'm only recording the particular part. That is, I'm actually implementing and qualitative research in a way. I am not calculating any statistical part, but I am only observing and marking down. That is a particular qualitative research. Next, we have conceptual and empirical research. Conceptual is generally developed by the philosophers, that is arts and science, arts and commerce people, to develop a new concept, new theoretical concept, whether the existing one or to reinterpret whatever the existing concept is. For example, evolution of certain human beings or the particular development of certain mathematical theory are been re-existing, and they have been reconfigured again and again. That is basically you are changing the concept of a particular research in a particular phase. Next is the empirical part. It is completely a database research, which is already having an experience or observations alone. You only observe. So when I talked about I'm standing in a particular mall along with my shelf, and I'm only observing this people touching the particular brand of mine, is an empirical research, because I am only collecting the data. I'm just marking the data. I'm not calculating only, I'm only marking the data, which is only coming in a system or particular thing to develop something. Fine. That I want to see how many people are coming. I am not giving any kind of a solution, but I am only observing. Fine. That is the empirical research. Further, there are a few more types of research. That is one-time research. That is basically referred, which is confined to a single period of time. For example, whatever the PhD every students do, whatever the data that we collect in a particular social science or a particular method, that is basically one time frame. Whether it is for 6 months or 1 month of data, that is basically a one-time research. Fine. The second type of research is longitudinal research. It's a long process. For example, collection of data for the particular calculation of census of India. We'll be having the census in 2021 as well. So from that, the data collection process has started right now. So it's a very long time process. That is a longitudinal research. Diagnostic research, as I have already explained you about the COVID situation, that we have a problem. What is the frequency which is occurred and the possibility solutions for it. So this is we are diagnosing in right now. Exploratory, I have already explained that it is a preliminary study. You have certain number of literature reviews and you are only exploring the ideas. most of the researchers, when they're in the first phase of the research or the first year of the process of research, they actually acquired with the exploratory research, means finding the topic, finding the minimizing the gap that they have, exploring the different points or ideas that they have. So this will help them. The exploratory research will help them to identify the particular, or because they are not familiar with any kind of a knowledge, do not have knowledge. You are basically gaining the knowledge. In an exploration, you are actually gaining the knowledge. Okay. So these are the few research. Experimental research, we normally experiment of many number of things. The COVID example is again an experimental. It's a clinical experimental research, we can say. Now remember, you can combine all these particular research methodologies in certain number of ways. It depends upon what kind of research method you can use. So all the particular methods so they can have a combination of research as well. We can say COVID is basically in an experimental clinical based research, because it is done in a clinical way and it is experimental. Whether the experiment is successful of getting a particular vaccine of COVID or not is an experiment. Okay. Where the other variables we are keeping constant. Historical is about the finding the past records, how the flu. Now, if we say about the flu in the past that we have, how we can relate the flu constraints or the constant to this particular variable and study the past records. So we can study the past records to a phenomenon of COVID and then say, okay, fine, if this is the particular what you can say symptoms, we can go in this particular way. If this is the symptoms, we can go in this particular way. So we are actually studying the past data and then we are coming up to a particular situation. That is the historical research that we are doing. Further, moving on, if we talk about the process of a particular research, this is a very simple process which is applicable to all the particular students who are actually doing in a particular research, whether they are in a scientific way, the engineering way, with the social science empirical way, or an analytical way of research that they are doing. This is the simplest way of identifying a research. First is always you persisting or actually defining a problem in a very effective way. Now, whatever the problem, you can either go to a root cause of it or whether the effect is on the society. Now, if we say the COVID situation is to the society, this problem is applicable to the society, fine, and it is the root cause of other different parameters, fine. Why it is the root cause now? Because COVID is effective to the society, or it is been more appropriate to the particular society. It is having effect on all the particular analysis or all the particular sectors. Whether we talk about geographical sectors, it is having an effect. Whether we talk about the legal systems, it is having an impact. Whether we talk about the demographic or the economical crisis, we have an impact. So COVID has an impact on all the particular phase. So first thing, we have to identify the problem in a very vast and a particular manner. That is the first thing. So after identifying the particular, defining the research or identifying the problem of yours, you need to study the existing situations or a particular literature review. Now, this literature review is a very important chapter in any kind of a research, whether you can take analytical research, empirical, engineering, or a scientific research. Why? Because you have to identify according to its requirements, any individual requirements. You have to identify the different conditions, the concepts, the findings, the previous researchers, the previous studies, the previous methods that they have implemented. So whatever the previous method you have implemented, you have to inculcate in a particular, identify and link this. You always remember to link this particular part. You have to link this particular part with this defined problem. You have to search. Defining the problem, you have to search for all the literature review of yours, which is in a particular part is identified. So after a particular defining problem, you have to go and for an extensive search of literature review is required. Okay. It may be from different blogs, the past reports of a company, the past processes of a particular company, the past pandemic that they have, the past sales data that you have, this past empirical data that you have. So all the different kind of research sources have been identified in a particular literature review part. That if we move forward from literature review, now we have formulating of hypothesis. Now, what we mean by hypothesis is basically the possibilities or the occurrence of events. Those who have knowing the probability from the mathematical background will be knowing what is possibilities and outcome of events. Possibilities or the outcomes in a hypothesis means whether this process, whether the two variables that I am studying, or whether the two variables that a particular researcher is studying, what kind of relationship these two variables are having. First thing, to establish what relationship these variables are having, whether it's a positive, neutral, or negative relationship, you can get it from an hypothesis. Fine. How much times the particular variable, x variable or y variable, for example, if I say I have two variables, so how occurrence of these two variables in a process of mine, in an event of mine, is possible for me. Okay, for example, if I say the production process of a particular industry of soft drinks, what is the effect on a particular seasonality of it? What kind of batch processing or the batch manufacturing should a soft drink industry have in the 4 different seasons? For example, if we take 4 quarters, that is quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. All these 4 quarters are different. Now, I want to speed up my production process after COVID. If we take the example of this COVID, now all the soft drink industries have started now. So if they want to say that what will be the market demand, I want to forecast whether this production process is equivalent or not, whether my previous data or previous variables are significant or not. If I want to identify that, I have to identify the possibilities and link all the different variables to formulate a hypothesis that this production process will have a severe effect on the religion, whether this production process have a severe effect on a particular industry outcome. So how much the particular hypothesis is there, whether it is correct or not, whether it is negative or it has no effect on a particular effect. So after formulating the hypothesis, you have to go to the design of research. Research has to be designed. Now, whatever this particular section where we have studied is about different research technique. Designing of research or sampling design is a completely different chapter or a particular sessions that we can have. But basically, whatever the designing of research is, the main part is the sampling of design samples. How the sample should be taken, how samples should be identified, what are the different sampling techniques that you need to, whether it's a convenient, whether it's a probabilistic sampling, non-probabilistic sampling technique. So that is basically formulating a part of your research design. Okay, I gave you the example of the upper control limit and lower control limit, that is UCL and LCL in a manufacturing industry. That is basically a sample. Out of the 1,000 lots manufactured by a particular organization in a particular company, in a particular hour, you actually only take 10 samples of it. And that is basically you say whether the particular process is within the control or not. Fine. Whether the process is under control. Now that is the hypothesis. If I say out of the samples that I have taken for production of bulbs, whether the process is under control or not, normal or not. Now this is my null hypothesis. Process under control is my null. Process not under control is my alternative. So that is basically I am formulating hypothesis. For that, I will select the samples which are required for me. That is termed in a design of research. Okay. That if I take out of 1,000, what is the minimum number of samples I'm supposed to take? That is been designed by the particular research design. So, okay. So if we move forward from that, after getting the sample design, now it's the time to collecting the data. That is, how will be the execution of your data, what will be your survey instruments, and how will you implement the data collection methods of yours. Now there are multiple tools. I said that Six Sigma, UCL, LCL, fishbone diagram of collecting the different kinds of data sets. Okay, so in that particular phase, when you're collecting the data from coming a particular sampling design, once you have finalized the sample design part of yours, and when you move forward towards the execution of your particular data collection, it is important to identify the data and collect the data in a very informative way. Now, if you see in today's era of 21st century, all the data which is collected is in an unstructured manner. If you see all the data, you get the data from a WhatsApp image also, or a particular report image is there, or there are more number of graphical tools used nowadays to collection of data. So all the particular data has to be collected through all the three sources: unstructured data, structured data, and semi-structured data. So that is basically the collection of data. So from whatever the research design you have, you will get either three kinds of design. That is whether it's a structured, semi-structured, unstructured data. Further moving to the particular this data, from these three types of data that you have collected, whatever the surveys that you have collected or whatever the data collection techniques that you have implemented, you need to analyze those data, okay, in terms of the patterns, relationship, and what is a trend. Fine. Again, I'm talking about the particular example of an engineering field, that the trend is basically about whether the process is under control. That is a trend. Whether age is having a relationship between consumer behavior. If I say age and consumer behavior has a relationship, and if I say what kind of pattern is generated between these two variables, that is to be analyzed in a perfectly effective way in the second last phase of a research process. And the final phase is about interpreting the data and reporting the report of yours. That is, you need to draft, you need to inference and present the finding of the particular outcome of yours. Fine. So if we talk about, this is the complete phase of a research process, starting from the defining the research problem, then you have literature review, then you have formulating the hypothesis, designing of the research, which includes the sampling design, which we have not covered in this topic because it's a complete, there are more number of extended version of sampling design, data collection, analysis, and interpretation of a particular report. Okay. Next, if we come to the part of the good researcher, research should be in a very effective way. It should be in a systematic way. Whatever the research you do should be in a systematic way, means whatever the research, it should be in a structured and in a well-organized way. That has been a particular first part of it about good research. Logical way, I've already given you that it should be governed by the logical rules. It should not follow the haphazard way of doing a research. That first of all, you collect the particular data collection is there before the particular identifying the problem. No, you have to go in a very logical way or the particular way. That is also including in a systematic way of doing a particular research. Third is empirical, that we have already studied quite a time, that deals with the real life data or for external validation. Now, empirical is, it should be validated externally. Fine. Whether I am doing a research in whatever research we have done, but if it is not validated externally, then we cannot say it's an empirical. It should have an external validation in a particular phase. Final is about replicability. Whatever the data you have done, whatever the data you have collected, whatever the particular research that you have identified, it has to be replicated for an effective decision-making problem. For example, if I'm implementing a particular phase of a perishable product, for example, a fruits and vegetable perishable product is a model has been developed, whether to shopping behavior of a perishable products in fruits and vegetables particularly. And if that model, if I pull that model outside and put it in a sweets market, which is also a perishable product, the lifespan of these two products is similar. So if I pull that model out from fruits and vegetables, and if I insert that model in a particular, whether it's a fish market or in a dairy market, and if this model is effectively working, then I can say that model has been replicated. Okay. Same way for an industry, if you have developed a particular theory for minimizing the load balancing of a particular developing of load balancing, if you inculcate that model and put them all from different functions, different functionalities or different function, that is basically considered as a replicability of a particular model. So a good research should be in a particular systematic way, logical way, empirical way, and a replicable way. So before the particular closing of this particular session of mine, I would like to again tell you that whatever the particular research you do, the research methodology is considered to be the most important part in any kind of a particular industry or in an academics, because whatever the particular research you do, it may be for yourself, but ultimately at the end of the research, whenever you go, when you start a research, it is not been identified that you are doing it, it is maybe for your PhD purpose. But when you start presenting and writing the papers, and when you writing the papers, you come down to the thesis part. Ultimately, when you commercialize the particular paper that you have written, somewhere you identify that you are actually supporting the society as a whole. So whatever research you rethink or the particular way you identify is always for the society. And remember one thing, research is the most important part for any kind of innovation and invention. Without research, inventions and innovations would not have been possible, because it is nothing but it's a continuous cycling process. Fine, it's a cycling process. Research means re and search. You again research, you again search, research, research. So it's a completely a particular process of identifying the different parameters. Okay, so thank you so much for giving this opportunity. And this is where I end my particular session of it. So if any of participants have any questions, you have to ask the question.
Hello. Hello. Sir,
Yes.
before giving the vote of thanks, there is one question from a student that how to do research in the area where less literature is available.
Okay. Ma'am, in which particular, for example, whether they're talking about the social science research or an engineering-based research?
Whatever. Both.
Okay. Now, if you say that this is the same example that we gave, that if we say about the COVID situation, now COVID basically it's a completely new scenario, a completely new virus which is not known to. Yes, some of the particular what I can say the parameters may be with the previous flu or Ebola. Some of the clinical researches suggest that it may be some of a replica or some of the gene may be coming from Ebola and other past one. But in this situation, what we can study that when we do not have any kind of literature review, we can actually go for an observational research.
Right.
That is the first thing.
Right.
You need to observe the behavior of a particular objective. Fine.
The thing
so
which you
observation
are,
is the only way. Now, observations has many kinds.
Right.
Yes, ma'am? Yeah.
Yes.
So the observational is the most important research. You can only observe.
Yes.
So that's the only way you can go forward.
Right. Thank you very much, sir. And I must say that you make the session very interesting, and the prominent thing was you explained it very systematically. So those who are not dealing with research methodology, maybe after your session, they may attempt to go to research. So thank you very much, sir. You made the difficult subject, or rather in the terms of student, the boring subject very interesting. Thank you very much, sir. And we would like to invite you again.
Thank you for giving such a wonderful. Sure, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for giving this opportunity, ma'am. Thank you so much,
Thank you. I must thank the management of our college. I must thank the captain of our ship, that is Principal Latesh, sir. I must thank head of the department, Dr. Mehul Mangrola, sir, and all the faculties for technical support. Thank you, Milind bhai. You are always there. And all the viewers for taking such interest. Thank you, Kshitij, sir. Once again, thank you.
We are going to end our session. So thank you very much all, and good afternoon.